So I'm going to be discussing the film The Exorcist by William Friedkin, written in 1973, and is based on the 1971 novel by William Blatty, in which was based on a real-life exorcism in 1949 that happened to a 14-year-old boy by the name of Ronald Doe, who was allegedly possessed by a demon. So many believe that the film is cursed, not only because production had many people being injured during the making of the film, but specifically because Christian and Catholic believers felt as though the film was an allegory of a modern loss of faith. So one quote throughout the film that's revealing this concept is when Father Damien Karras says, "It's more than psychiatry, and you know that, Tom. Some of their problems come down to faith, their vocation, and the meaning of their lives, and I can't cut it anymore. I need out, I'm unfit, I think I've lost my faith, Tom." So this is revealing Karras questioning his own faith and feeling as though his strength has been lost. So the beginning of the film takes place in Iraq, where there is a very strong religious faith, and although it's Islamic, Father Merrin eventually personifies the Christian faith throughout the rest of the story. He finds an amulet with an image of the demon Pazuzu on it, who he had exorcised many years back. And with having revisited this image, he now feels and knows that he's going to have to face the demon again. And so after Father Merrin discusses the image and the situation with the Mosul curator of antiquities, the curator tells him evil against evil. And so in the religious sense, this is referring to that in order for evil to be fought, other forms of evil would have to be the ones to stop the demon Pazuzu. Other types of social stresses that relate to questioning in one's faith that were discussed in Module 11, the Exorcism module. So from the 10-minute video in that module titled "A Day in the Life of a Modern American Exorcist," Father Vincent Lampert states, "There is a war that's being waged between good and evil. Faith in God will lead us in one direction, and the lack in faith will lead us in another." So this is just hence why many Christians end up believing that the film itself is cursed, because to question one's faith results in believing that one will turn towards evil and away from God. So later on, more towards the climax of the film, this whole concept is revealed through Father Damien Karras just continuously doubting his faith and performing an unchristian method when attempting to get the demon out of Reagan's body. So I was able to connect this concept of an unchristianized method with what we discussed in Module 1, Lecture 1, when we were discussing on Plato, where he referred to evil as a specifically Christianized term, and that his critique of evil was thought of as a critique of what the Christian concepts believed evil were. So that basically it's thought that the Christian morality had nothing to do with God himself, but with condemning and accusing evil. So that be anything that were to go against the Bible and God's word would be considered and labeled as evil. This whole concept of a unchristianized methods and of losing one's faith brings one more fear that they are reaching closer and closer towards evil. And so these acts are what implement more fear into Christian and Catholic believers for the fact that if there is no good to fight evil, then it's basically evil fighting evil, as I mentioned, which puts one basically in a world without God, and therefore only in a world of evil, which would basically be hell. So from the Christian viewpoint, good only comes from God, the Christian and Catholic God, and if he doesn't exist to be able to fight evil, then there is no real good to fight evil, and the only thing to be able to do so are the false religions. So that being anything against God, such as Islam, whose God known as Allah to have created good and evil, which the Christian religion considers just evil and evil, basically evil against evil. So with all of this being said, there's basically this overall reoccurring aspect that not only does evil represent the physical aspects of Reagan and her possession, but in the evil of having someone to have lost or questioned their faith in God, and the fear that comes with that in going to hell. In this overall concept that Christianity fears that if one loses their faith in God, then one will turn to a bestial person, thus far losing innocence, speaking and performing obscenities, similar to the way that Reagan does when she's possessed. Hence, this is what drives Father Karras's anxiety-driven type of character development throughout the film. However, it's interesting because since having faith is such a reoccurring theme throughout this film, the contrary to that is being Reagan's mother, Chris McNeil, who is an atheist and never taught Reagan any form of religion because she had thought of it as dishonest. And so as the plot develops more, there's an obvious problem that is noticed with Reagan. Her mother begins losing faith in doctors and psychiatrists to be able to help her, and then psychiatrists eventually just suggest performing an exorcism as a cure, and that they warn her that she internally has to have faith and believe that it's going to work in order for the exorcism to actually have potential to work. So this is the part where Reagan's mother finds Father Karras to perform the exorcism on Reagan. And we see where Reagan's mother is beginning to search within herself and find her own faith. And as Father Karras examines Reagan, this is where we notice more of the evidently physical aspects of evil play out as she speaks other languages like Latin and French, and which she had never studied before. She uses telekinesis to open drawers and just uses very degrading language. She manifests knowledge from the past about Father Karras and begins discussing with him of his dead mother and imitating the voice of a previous person that he attempted to help but was unable to exorcise. So just overall, how evil is portrayed in the film is not only through these physical aspects of Reagan, but of basically just this emphasis in questioning one's faith. And this portrayal tells us that for one to question their faith and not believe in God is one of the biggest forms of evil to Christianity, because it results in going more towards evil. And this tells us that if one were to go to hell, it would be because they were to have questioned their faith. Thank you.